YouTube, how are you now? Back on Battlefield 2042, breaking down some more weapon stats, time to kill charts. This time we're going to be going over the rest of the assault rifles and the LMGs. So the AK-24, the SFAR-MGL, aka SCAR, the AC-42, just briefly, just covering the stats, not the time to kills, simply because it's a burst fire weapon. And time to kill charts are only for the full autos. The LCMG and the PKP-BP. Again, if you haven't seen the first episode of this series, I would recommend checking that out, just to get the gist of how this works, and then information on how the suppressors work or don't work in this game. So if you haven't seen that episode, links down in the description, check it out. Again, big thanks to Reddit user Toric Darkrise for doing all the testing for all these weapons and attachments and putting all that information into this chart here. Let's just dive right into the stats. So we're going to go with the AK-24, picking up where we left off. You got the standard ammunition and the high-powered ammunition. Those are your only two options here. Standard ammunition does 26 damage out to 8 meters, 22 damage out to 50 meters, 18 damage beyond that. Standard suppressed does 24 damage out to 8 meters, 20 damage out to 50 meters, and then 17 beyond that. The standard and long barrel combo is going to be 600 rounds per minute, whereas every other option, so your factory barrel, your suppressor, and your compensators and muzzle brakes, with the standard ammunition will be 650 rounds per minute. So that's the fastest fire rate you can get out of the AK. And then we got high powered down here. High powered does 26 damage out to 10 meters, so 2 meter extra damage range there. 22 damage out to 100 meters, so this actually doubles that 50 meter damage range, and then 18 damage beyond that. High power suppressed, 24 damage out to 10 meters, 20 damage out to 100 meters, 17 damage beyond that. And your rate of fire is going to be 550 rounds per minute for your high powered long barrel combo, and then 600 rounds per minute for your high power and everything else combo. So the AK-24, we have our time to kill chart here. Just a refresher, we have against no armor and then armor. So armor is only comparative to other armor values, and then no armor is only comparative to other no armor values. So these two time to kills are the fastest, even though they're different, 277, 369. But this is for armor, it only compares to other armor, and this is for no armor, it only compares to no other armor. And then your red is your fastest time to kill. Orange is within 50 milliseconds of that fastest time to kill. Yellow is within 100 milliseconds. Light green within 150 milliseconds. Dark green within 200 milliseconds. And then your grays are going to be beyond 200 milliseconds. So on the AK-24, you have your standard ammunition here and your high power ammunition here with your different barrel types. So you got long barrel, factory barrel, or your compensators, and then your suppressor here. The standout here is obviously going to be your standard factory barrel setup. So this is the fastest time to kill within 50 meters. It drops off a little bit at that 75 to 100 meter range, but then it's still the fastest again at 100 meters beyond that. So high power isn't all that great. It's only beating it here within 75 to 100 meters, and then not even beyond 100 meters. But it still stays pretty close, so it's within 30 milliseconds here, within 40 milliseconds here. So that's pretty much the case throughout. It's still really close as far as time to kill. Orange is still really competitive. But the fastest possible time to kill is going to be your standard ammunition here. And then obviously the high power also adds recoil, so you have to take that into consideration as well. You can run the suppressor here on the AK because it doesn't really affect it too much. It does affect it within 10 meters by 100 milliseconds, so that's considerable, but at the same time the AK is not that great within that range anyway. So your ideal engagement range for the AK will be in this mid-range, and this is the exact same time to kill. It doesn't affect your time to kill at all in this mid-range. So if you want to stay off the minimap outside of that 20-meter range, you can run the suppressor with little downside as long as your engagements remain in that medium range. Any enemy within 20 meters of you while you're shooting, even if you're shooting at enemies far away, they will still see you on the minimap though. So the suppressor does not keep you off the minimap within 20 meters. But then it does drop off against armor at that 75 to 100 meter range, but that's a negligible range anyway. And then it also hurts you at super long range as well. But chances are you're not going to be hitting those shots at full auto anyway. You're going to have to tap fire or burst fire. So you're not going to be maximizing your time to kill potential anyway. So the suppressor is a good option, but if you want to go for the fastest time to kill possible, you're going to want to go with the standard and then either the horizontal recoil control or the vertical recoil control compensator or muzzle brake. But the high power is also a really good option as well. So depends what you want to go for, what you prefer, but the high power does add recoil. So for the AK-24, I would recommend the standard issue drum mag or extended mag. The extended mag gives you more reserve ammo and a faster reload, but it only holds 40 rounds versus the drum mag's 50 rounds. So I usually go with the higher ammo capacity, and then if I run out of ammo, I'll switch to the extended mag, because then you have that whole set to work with as well. For the underbarrel, I use this one because it has no negatives, so it's accuracy wall static. Not all the guns have this specific grip where it doesn't affect your accuracy while moving. Usually it's a trade-off between one or the other, but this one doesn't have that trade-off, so I use this one. And then the horizontal recoil control again. So I just want to make sure it's as accurate as possible, because vertical recoil control I can handle, but horizontal recoil control is a little bit harder to compensate for. And then whichever sight you prefer, which I prefer the hollow. You can run the suppressor on the AK with minimal downsides if you want to stay off the minimap outside of 20 meters. So this weapon's not the greatest up close anyway, so you're going to want to try to engage most enemies at that medium range, and the suppressor will keep you off the minimap at that medium range. So if you want to shoot at targets without them knowing where you are based on the minimap, suppressor is a really good option, and it doesn't have too much of a downside either, so that's also an option as well. But if you feel like the AK's recoil is a little bit too unruly, you may want to stick with the compensators that will tighten up that recoil a little bit. But either one's a really good option. Just depends what you prefer to do and how you want to play. So for the SFAR, aka SCAR, you have your standard ammunition and your high powered. Those are the only two options, similar to the AK. Standard does 26 damage out to 10 meters, 22 damage out to 50 meters, 18 damage beyond that. Standard suppressed does 24 damage out to 10 meters, 20 damage out to 50 meters, and then 17 deep beyond that. Your standard long barrel combo is going to be 600 rounds per minute, and your standard factory barrel suppressor compensator muzzle brake combo is going to be 650 rounds per minute, which is your max fire rate with the SCAR. And then your high powered does 22 damage at all ranges, so it's pretty bad up close, but at long range it's actually really good. If you can hit all your shots, obviously. You're going to have more recoil with the SCAR, and the SCAR has pretty unruly recoil to begin with, so you're not going to probably be able to maximize that TTK at long range, but if you can hit all your shots, it's actually pretty good at long range. And then your high power suppressed does 20 damage at all ranges. Your rate of fire is going to be 550 rounds per minute with your high power long barrel combo, and then 600 rounds per minute with your high power and everything else combo. So for the SFAR or SCAR, you have your standard ammunition and your high power ammunition with your different barrel types. Your fastest time to kill possible is going to be your standard and factory setup, so either a compensator or a muzzle brake or a factory barrel. Might as well just run the compensator or muzzle brake though, because the factory barrel doesn't really do anything for you. It's just a stock setup. So this is your fastest time to kill within 50 meters, and then beyond that it's not as great. So you're behind by about within 100 milliseconds at 75 plus meters. So your high power rounds are going to be winning that long range simply because they don't have a damage drop off. They're terrible in the close range. So this is within 200 milliseconds. This is within this is within 150 milliseconds. This is within 200 milliseconds. So that's a huge difference. It's terrible within 10 meters, but then it's really good within the 10 to 50 meter range, and then it's the best beyond 50 meters. So, but it does add recoil, so you have to take that into consideration as well. And same thing as the AK, the standard suppressor doesn't hurt you too badly. So if you really want to run the suppressor and stay off the minimap outside of 20 meters, you can, with only a negligible difference. So it's only going to hurt you within 10 meters against no armor, but it is 100 millisecond difference. So that's noticeable. But again, the SFAR is not great up close anyway. You're going to want to keep your engagement distances at mid-range, and there's no negative effect running a suppressor at those mid-ranges. It does hurt you at long ranges, so 75 meters plus against armor, but again, you're going to have to tap fire and burst fire there as well. And then the high power, it is good beyond 10 meters, so as long as you can avoid those within 10 meter engagements, it's still a viable option, but you're going to do terribly up close. So especially if you're running against other weapons that are much better at close range. So I mean, the regular SFAR is not great up close anyway, but if you're running into really good guns, so like the K30 can kill you in 200 milliseconds, so they can kill you in half the time you can kill them. So you definitely got to keep that in mind and try to keep your engagement distances at medium range, plus if you're going to be running high power. And then the suppressor has no negative effect at all against high power. So if you're going to run high power, you might as well run high power suppressed, unless you really need that recoil control from the other attachments like the compensator or the muzzle brake. So for the SFAR or SCAR, you're going to want to run, I run the high power simply because it's the drum mag. So you get 40 rounds versus 30 or 20. It used to be 50. I'm not so sure if it still is or not. But last time I checked in game, it was only 40 rounds, whereas it was 50 before. But if that's the case, you can always switch to the standard, because that's 30 versus 40, and you get a faster fire rate with the standard issue. But I just like having extra ammo, especially with this weapon. And then under barrels, you're going to have your grenade launcher, so whichever you plan on using for whatever situation. I use the anti-vehicle ones so that I have an anti-vehicle option if I run out of the recoilless or I don't have that as my gadget. And then the compensator for horizontal recoil control. Similar to all the other ones, simply because vertical recoil control is not difficult to handle, but horizontal recoil control is a lot more random and harder to compensate for. So, and then whichever sight you prefer to use for whatever range you're planning on going with. So for the AC-42, we're not going to do the time to kill chart simply because it is a burst fire gun. So it has a 1200 round per minute fire rate within that burst, but then the burst delay seems to vary. So it's kind of difficult to calculate time to kill charts if that burst delay is not always the same. But we will be covering the stats here. So you have the standard, your high powered, and your subsonic. So standard ammunition does 26 damage out to 50 meters, 22 damage beyond that. Standard suppressed does 24 damage out to 50 meters, and then 20 damage beyond that. It does have the heavy suppressor option, which is the only assault rifle that has that option. So this will actually keep you off the minimap at any range, whereas the standard suppressors will only keep you off the minimap within 20 meters. So it'll only keep you off the minimap outside of 20 meters, I mean. So any enemies within 20 meters of you while you're firing suppressed, you will still show up on their minimaps. So keep that in mind, whereas the heavy suppressors will keep you off the minimap at all ranges when firing. And this does 23 damage out to 50 meters and then 19 damage beyond that. High powered rounds does 26 damage at all ranges, so you don't have that drop off. High powered suppress does 24 damage at all ranges. Heavy suppressor does 23 at all ranges. So this is going to do the same damage up close, but then also at any range beyond that as well. So beyond 50 meters, this is going to do much more damage than the standard and the subsonic. Subsonic does 26 damage out to 75 meters, so the range is a little bit better on the subsonic ammo, and then 22 damage beyond that compared to the standard. Subsonic suppress does 24 damage out to 75 meters, and then 20 damage beyond that, and then subsonic heavy suppressor does 23 damage out to 75 meters, and then 19 damage beyond that. So for the AC-42, I would recommend going with the standard issue extended mag. This gives you 39 rounds, which is basically 13 bursts of 3-round bursts. This is the fastest fire rate you can get with this, but it is burst fire and there's burst delay and all that, so doesn't really make too much of a difference as far as rate of fire goes. For underbarrel, accuracy while moving yet again. For the barrel, the horizontal recoil control yet again. And then whichever sight you prefer. So the LCMG, you have your standard ammunition, your high power, your CQC, and your subsonic. Standard ammunition does 26 damage out to 18 meters, 22 damage out to 75 meters, and then 18 damage beyond that. Standard suppress does 24 damage out to 18 meters, 20 damage out to 75 meters, and then 17 damage beyond that. Your rate of fire is going to be 550 rounds per minute with your standard long barrel combo, 650 rounds per minute with your short barrel standard combo, and then 600 rounds per minute with everything else. So your factory barrel, your suppressor, your compensator, your muzzle brake. High power does 26 damage out to 40 meters, so you're more than doubling that first damage range here. 22 damage beyond that, so you don't have that 18 damage drop off at long range, but you do get a slower fire rate here. High power suppress does 24 damage out to 40 meters and then 20 damage beyond that. Your rate of fire for the high power long barrel combo is 500 rounds per minute. For the high power short barrel combo is 600 rounds per minute, and then everything else is going to be 550 rounds per minute. For your CQC, you have 26 damage out to 8 meters, so it drops that first damage range pretty considerably while increasing your fire rate. At 22 damage out to 40 meters, so this drops considerably as well. 18 damage out to 75 meters, and then you have another damage drop off that you don't have with any of the other ammunition types, with 15 damage at long range. CQC suppress does 24 damage out to 8 meters, 20 damage out to 40 meters, 17 damage out to 75 meters, and then 14 damage beyond that. Your fire rate for the CQC long barrel combo is 600 rounds per minute. For the CQC short barrel combo is 700 rounds per minute, which is the fastest fire rate you can get with this weapon. And then for everything else, it's going to be 650 rounds per minute, CQC and any other attachment combo. Subsonic does 26 damage out to 28 meters, 22 damage out to 50 meters, and then 18 damage beyond that. So the first damage range is a little bit farther than the standard ammunition, but the second damage range drops off sooner than the standard ammunition. Subsonic suppress does 24 damage out to 28 meters, 20 damage out to 50 meters, and then 17 damage beyond that. And your rate of fire is going to be 500 rounds per minute for your subsonic long barrel combo, 600 rounds per minute for your subsonic short barrel combo, and then 550 rounds per minute for your subsonic and everything else combo. So the LCMG, you have your standard ammo, your high powered ammo, your close combat ammo, and your subsonic ammo, along with your different barrel options here. So this gun is a bit of a mix. As you can see, the fastest time to kill jumps from each type here. So your fastest time to kill within 10 meters is going to be your close combat short barrel option. And then within 10 to 20 meters, it's going to be your standard short barrel option. And then within 20 to 40 meters, it's going to be your high power short barrel option, or within 20 to 30 meters, it's going to be your subsonic short barrel option. And then from 40 meters to 75 meters, it's your standard short barrel option, and then 100 meters plus, it's going to be your high power short barrel option. So short barrel option is obviously going to be your best bet no matter what, but what type of ammunition really depends on the ranges you're planning to fight enemies at. CQC is obviously going to be the best up close, but it does fall off pretty hard here within that 10 to 20 meter range, and then it's good again out to about 40 meters. Whereas the standard short barrel combo is still pretty good up close, so you're only losing about 20 milliseconds within that 10 meter range, and then you're actually beating it by 60, 70 milliseconds here in that second damage range. So this is actually a really good option for up close as well, within 20 meters, but then it drops off pretty hard here in that mid range, whereas the CQC short barrel option picks up here. So it's kind of difficult to recommend the best setup here. It really depends on how you plan on using this weapon. I would say the most consistent would be the high power short barrel combo, so it's really good at any range except against armor within 10 meters. So it really depends on what you plan on using it for, and then I don't believe the high power has that 200 round magazine capacity, whereas the close combat does, and then the standard ammo does as well. So I mean, if you want to have that 200 rounds, you could run either the standard or the CQC, but the short barrel is going to be your best bet no matter what ammunition type you're running. So for the LCMG, I would recommend using the close combat ammunition paired with the short barrel option just to max out the fire rate. But you could go with the standard issue short barrel combo depending on what ranges you prefer to use the weapon at. Same thing for the other ammo types as well. For the underbarrel, I go with the accuracy wall static grip instead of the moving grip, simply because if you plan on picking at people from far away, that would be the best way to go, just to stand still. You could always bipod it instead that way, depending on what you want to do, and go with the accuracy while moving for every other situation. But I would prefer to have a little bit more freedom with the grips as opposed to the bipod having to lay down prone or perch it on like a surface or something. So, and then whichever sight you prefer for whatever range you plan on using it at. So this one doesn't have the hollow sight, unfortunately, so this is, well, the standard hollow sights that I use on the other ones, this is a hollow sight, but it's a little bit different. But it's the best sight for close quarters on this gun, in my opinion. That's all personal preference, really. On the PKP-BP, you only have two ammunition types to work with, your standard and high powered. Standard ammunition does 22 damage out to 8 meters, 18 damage out to 50 meters, and then 15 damage beyond that, with a rate of fire of 850 rounds per minute. High powered ammunition does 22 damage out to 40 meters, so this extends that range considerably. 18 damage out to 75 meters, so this extends that range a little bit, and then 15 damage beyond that, with a rate of fire of 800 rounds per minute. And then on your PKP, you have your standard and your high power. This goes back and forth as well, so your standard is going to be best within 10 meters, but it's only off by like 20 milliseconds here against high power. But then it drops off against no armor within 10 to 40 meters. This is off by like 50 milliseconds. So you got 20 milliseconds versus 50 milliseconds. And then it picks back up again here within 40 to 50 meters, but only off by 20 to 30 milliseconds again. And then drops off again here. This is off by 50 milliseconds. So, and then 100 meters plus is going to be the standard ammunition again, but again, it only drops off by 20 to 30 milliseconds. So you have 50 millisecond drop-offs versus 20 to 30 millisecond drop-offs, but then again, the high power rounds does have higher recoil, and you also have a slower fire rate. So Your standard ammunition is going to be more forgiving with that higher fire rate and less recoil, but your high power rounds do perform consistently better if you can hit all your shots. But then at long range, the standard ammunition is better. So if you're running the bipod and you have that higher fire rate and you have less recoil, you're going to actually be doing better at those super long ranges. So it really depends on how you want to use it. Either option is perfectly fine, perfectly usable. Just depends on what you prefer, really. So for the PKP, I would recommend the standard issue ammunition just to get the max fire rate, whereas the high power is what you start with, but switching to the standard issue will give you a higher fire rate. You don't have any options as far as your underbarrels. This is all you got. The compensator for horizontal recoil control is what I would use in most situations, because the factory barrel doesn't do anything for you, so you might as well just go with one of these things that you prefer to use, either vertical recoil control or horizontal recoil control. And then whichever sight you prefer. I just prefer the Fusion Hollow, but it's all personal preference. So we're just going to go quickly through the DMRs and the sniper rifles, just the damage values for the different types of ammunition. No TTK charts, simply because they're single fire or bolt action. So maxing out the fire rate is somewhat difficult with single fire weapons unless you have a really good trigger finger, and then obviously the bolt actions, if you don't kill them with that first shot, the time to kill is going to be horrendous, and you're most likely going to die unless they're not shooting at you as well. So the DM7, you have standard ammunition, high power, close combat, subsonic, and then anti-armor. Standard ammunition does 35 damage within 75 meters and then 26 damage beyond that. Standard suppressed does 32 damage out to 75 meters and then 24 beyond that. High power ammunition does 35 damage at all ranges. High power suppressed does 32 damage at all ranges. Your close combat ammunition does 35 damage out to 30 meters. So this is less than half of standard ammunition range. 26 damage out to 75 meters. So this is actually within that range, doing minimum damage. And then 22 damage beyond that. CQC suppressed, 32 damage out to 30 meters, 24 damage out to 75 meters, and then 20 damage beyond that. Subsonic suppressed does 35 damage out to 75 meters, and then 26 damage beyond that. So this is the same as your standard ammo. Subsonic suppressed does 32 damage out to 75 meters, and then 24 damage beyond that. And then your anti-armor ammo does 26 damage out to 50 meters, and then 22 damage beyond that. Anti-armor suppressed does 24 damage out to 50 meters and then 20 damage beyond that. So you're doing considerably less damage with anti-armor to infantry, but it's meant for vehicles. So that's how that works. You're trading off damage to infantry to be able to damage vehicles. The SVK, you have standard, high-powered, and anti-armor ammo. Standard ammunition does 60 damage within 40 meters and then 35 damage beyond that. So it's a 2-shot kill within 40 meters with standard ammo. And it's a 3-shot kill at range. Standard suppressed, 54 damage out to 40 meters and then 32 damage beyond that. So suppressed, it's still a 2-shot kill within 40 meters unless they have armor. So 120 damage is enough to kill even an armor opponent with 2 shots, whereas 54 is not. It'll kill unarmored, but it will not kill armored with 2 shots. And then 32 damage is a 4-shot kill at range, compared to the 3-shot not suppressed. So keep that in mind. It could be good within 40 meters as long as they don't have armor, but otherwise it's going to be an extra shot in either situation. High powered does 60 damage at all ranges, so it's going to be a 2-shot at any range, even against armor. High power suppressed, 54 damage at all ranges, so 2-shot kill at any range except against armor. It's going to take 3 shots there. And then your anti-armor does 35 damage within 50 meters, 26 damage beyond that, 32 damage out to 50 meters, and then 24 damage beyond that. So considerably less damage to infantry, but the ability to damage vehicles. And then the VCAR, you have standard, close combat, subsonic ammunition. Standard does 35 damage out to 18 meters, 26 damage out to 75 meters, 22 damage out to 100 meters, and then 18 damage beyond that. Standard suppressed does 32 damage out to 18 meters, 24 damage out to 75 meters, 20 damage out to 100 meters, and then 17 damage beyond that. So this performs more like an assault rifle at these longer ranges, but you do get DMR damage within the shorter range here. Obviously it doesn't extend as far as these other two, only 18 meters compared to 40 meters or 75 meters. But you get that high damage profile within 18 meters. CQC does 35 damage out to 10 meters, 26 damage out to 30 meters, 22 damage out to 75 meters, and then 18 damage beyond that. So you're cutting these two ranges in half basically, and then this one down by 25 meters. CQC suppressed does 32 damage to 10 meters, 24 damage out to 30 meters, 20 damage out to 75 meters, 17 damage beyond that. Subsonic 35 damage out to 10 meters, 26 damage out to 40 meters, 22 damage out to 100 meters, and then 18 damage beyond that. So you get 10 extra meters here compared to CQC, but you lose almost half again against standard. But then this range is the same. And you do lose half against standard as well in the first damage range. Subsonic does 32 damage out to 10 meters, 24 damage out to 40 meters, 20 damage out to 100 meters, and then 17 damage beyond that. And then we have the sniper rifles. So the SWS-10 is the first one you unlock. Standard ammunition, high powered, close combat, subsonic, anti-armor. Standard ammunition does 110 damage within 10 meters, and then 60 damage beyond that. So it's a one-shot kill within 10 meters if they don't have armor. Otherwise it's a two-shot kill there, and then it's a two-shot kill at any range unless you're getting a headshot. Headshot's one-shot kill no matter what, at any range. Standard suppressed does 99 damage within 10 meters, so not even a one-shot kill against no armor, even within 10 meters, and then 54 damage beyond that. So this is actually a three-shot kill against armor at range, anything beyond 10 meters. You gotta hit those headshots. Standard heavy suppressor, 94 damage within 10 meters, 51 damage at long range. So three-shot kill again against armor without headshots. So if you're going to run a suppressor, you should probably run the heavy suppressor, since the standard suppressor doesn't keep you off the minimap within 20 meters. Although when you're sniping, I mean, you're probably not shooting within 20 meters anyway. Most of your enemies are going to be at long range, but if you want to stay off the minimap of people around you, so if enemies are around you while you're sniping at somebody 200 meters away, if they're within 20 meters, you'll show up on their minimap, even if you're sniping at somebody long ways away with that suppressor. So the heavy suppressor is your best bet if you're going to run a suppressor. High power rounds do 110 damage out to 10 meters, 60 damage minimum. So these damage values are actually the same. The main difference between standard and heavy, I believe, is, or the high power, is that this also increases your bullet velocity as well. Close combat ammunition, same damage, but then you do get a drop off at 75 meters. So the second damage range drops off at 75, and you get a third damage drop off, or third damage range. So 35 damage, 32 damage, and then 30 damage with suppressed and suppressors beyond 75 meters. So if you're running the close combat ammunition, you could be shooting people 3 to 4 times in the body to kill them, and that's that's not going to work out for a sniper. So I wouldn't recommend running the close combat rounds for that. Subsonic, same thing, same damage profile. Anti-armor is the different one here, so you do 60 damage out to 75 meters and then 35 damage beyond that. So it's a 2-shot kill even against armor, and then a 3 to 4-shot kill depending on armor if it's hitting the body. But it does damage to vehicles, so this is trading off damage to enemies, infantry, for damage against vehicles. But if you get those headshots, it shouldn't matter. You should still be killing them with 1 shot to the head. Anti-armor suppressed does 54 damage out to 75 meters, 32 damage beyond that. And then anti-armor heavy suppressor, 51 damage out to 75 meters, and then 30 damage beyond that. So even with this lowest damage profile, which is 30, the headshot multiplier for your sniper rifles is 4 times the multiplier, so it'll still be 120 damage, which is a one-shot headshot, even against armor. So always a one-shot headshot, no matter what you're running. So definitely go for those heads. This could actually work out for you if you're hitting those heads and you want to have an option against vehicles as well, but you have to hit those headshots. The DXR-1 is the next sniper rifle you unlock. You have standard, high power, and anti-armor again. Damage is the same, so 110 out to 10 meters and then 60 beyond that. 99 damage out to 10 meters and then 54 beyond that. Whether it's suppressed or whether it's standard or high power, it's the same as the SWS-10. And the damage is the same as well with the anti-armor. So you have 60 damage out to 75 meters, 35 damage beyond that, 54 damage out to 75 meters, and 32 damage beyond that. But you don't have that heavy suppressor option here, so you can't stay off the minimap at every range using a suppressor with the DXR1 or DRX1. You can only stay off the minimap outside of 20 meters. So if you're shooting at enemies far away, but there's enemies within 20 meters of you while you're firing with a suppressor in the DRX1, they'll still see you on the minimap. So keep that in mind. And then your NTW-50 anti-material sniper rifle. You got anti-material and then you got anti-material high-powered. So anti-material does 110 damage out to 75 meters. This is a one-shot body shot against no armor out to 75 meters and then 90 damage beyond that. And then your anti-material high power does 110 damage out to 150 meters. So you're doubling this one-shot kill range to the chest against no armor. If they have armor, it's still going to be 2 shots. If not, it's a one shot out to 150 meters, even to the chest. And then you got different damage values for how these rounds affect each different vehicle here. So if you just want to look over that really quickly. It's a lot of information, probably not that useful. It doesn't do a whole lot of damage to any of these vehicles since they nerfed it before I even unlocked it, so unfortunate. And then you also have your damage values for your pistols here. So your G57, you only have the close combat rounds available. It does 22 damage out to 20 meters, 18 damage out to 30 meters, 12 damage beyond that. CQC suppressed does 20 damage out to 20 meters, 17 damage out to 30 meters, and then 11 damage beyond that. Your MP28, you have standard and subsonic ammo. Standard does 26 damage out to 50 meters, 22 damage out to 100 meters, and then 18 damage beyond that. So it does considerably more damage than the G57 out to farther ranges as well. Standard suppressed does 24 damage out to 50 meters, 20 damage out to 100 meters, and then 17 damage beyond that. Your subsonic ammo does 26 damage out to 40 meters, so you lose 10 meters within that first damage range. 22 damage out to 75 meters, so you lose 25 meters here, and then 18 damage beyond that. Subsonic suppress, 24 damage out to 40 meters, 20 damage out to 75, and then 17 beyond that. And then you have your M44 revolver. You only have your one ammo type, which does 60 damage out to 40 meters, and then 35 damage beyond that. So it's a 2-shot kill within 40 meters, and then a 3-shot to 4-shot kill depending on armor beyond that. So you got to go for those headshots as well. It is at least a 2 times headshot multiplier, so if you hit a headshot within 40 meters, it's a 1-shot kill. But you have to hit those heads. And then your M5 recoilless does 20 damage to the front, 26 damage to the side, and then 33 damage to the back. So if you can shoot an armored vehicle in the back, that's your best bet. You're going to get the most damage. Against the LATV-4, it does 69 damage on any side. Against the Bolty, it does 40 damage on all sides. And then against the hovercraft, it does 62 damage at all sides. So yeah, a lot of information to take in, I know. A lot of crazy stats. Let me know down in the comments if you want me to go into more detail on some of the stats that I just breezed through, so like the DMRs or the sniper rifles. Could always expand on those if you're interested, or if there's anything missing from these charts that you would like to know, could definitely explore that as well. But yeah, thanks for watching yet again. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.